Hello, everyone, and welcome to another survival game guide in our Medieval Dynasty series. Today, we're going to be talking about weapons, ranged and melee weapons, as they stand currently, because I do believe the devs are actually working on more weapons, I believe anyway, which will be released in a future update. So right now we're going to be covering the best weapons in the game as of June 2023. And obviously those fall into two categories, ranged and melee. So let's just kind of get right in here. And we're looking at best in terms of like damage output and all that. So let's just quick go to here. This guy's going to have all the weapons in the game that you can get so far, like I said. And beginning with range, let's just start at the very bottom, the least best, if you will, which is the bow. You can kind of see right here that it only does 35 damage just on its own. So, not amazing. But it is like the cheapest one, so that's nice, but that not great. The recurve bow, though, you can see here that increases up to 45 damage, and then the long bow does 55 damage. So if you like using bows, longbow is going to be the one that does the most output damage. Now, that being said, I have noticed that the recurve bow is a little bit faster, so it's more kind of like DPS damage, I would say. So if that's more of like your style, you might actually like to use the recurve bow over the longbow. But if you just want just pure damage, the longbow is going to be your best bet there. Now, when it comes to ranged, the bows actually aren't as strong. The crossbows are actually better. We can take a look here at the wooden crossbow. That does 40 damage, and that one's already better than just the standard bow, which only did 35. So, and it's like kind of like, it's still like your beginner weapon. So like already off the bat, crossbows are already doing better than the traditional bows. And if we can find the iron crossbow, there it is, we can see that does 70 damage right here. Compared to the longbow's 55. So already, like, that's substantially more. So if you want to go range and you want just like the best damage output, go iron crossbow. And the thing with range, the reason why it's so powerful is because you get your damage from your weapon, but then you add the arrow damage on top of that. It's actually cumulative damage. The arrow damage gets added onto the bow damage, and that is the total damage output. And there are several different types of arrows in the game. You start off with stone arrows, which I believe he has right here, yep. So we can see that adds like 25 damage on top of like whatever weapon you're using. So if you're using an iron crossbow, that ends up becoming, what, 95, I believe, if my math is okay? Who knows? It's me, it's my math, who knows? So that's like already substantially more, right? Even if you're using just like a basic stone arrow. And if you keep going in terms of like, higher tier of the arrows, copper arrow hero, we can see that does 35 damage. So like 10 more. And then we have bronze arrows. Here we are. That does another 45. So it seems to be like it increases by 10, basically. And then the highest one that you can use is iron arrows, which we have right. Come on, come on. Right there. That adds 55 damage. So if you're using like a longbow, I don't know why I said crossbow because arrows don't work with crossbows. But if you're using the iron arrow with a longbow, you're doing like 110, I think, damage total. So that's pretty amazing, and it's range too, so you don't even have to get up close to the enemy. So if you ask me, like, ranged weapons are, in my opinion, like the best weapons. Whether it's hunting or fighting bandits, basically. Now, if we look at bolts and crossbows, we kind of have like the same thing. We have like your stone bolts, copper bolts, bronze bolts. But if we look at the iron bolt here, that does 75 damage. It does like crazy amounts of damage. Add that to the iron crossbow, which does 70. That's a lot of damage. So like if you're using the iron crossbow with the iron bolt, you're doing a lot of damage. You could probably one shot most of the enemies, unless you have this like on super difficulty mode. It might take you maybe a few more bolts, but like by and large, vanilla anyway, vanilla settings, like this is going to be really, we're not going to buy anything, thank you. This is going to be really good for you. So that's really awesome. Now you might think, okay, bows, crossbows, fun, but I want to like get into the nitty gritty of it, right? And so you might be looking at melee weapons, and there's two basically melee weapons in the game so far, and that is spears and cudgels and cudgels, however you want to say that. Now, spears obviously can also be used range. That's kind of actually how I use them. I don't really stab with them because they're a little jankety, in my opinion. I prefer to throw spears, but you can use it as a melee weapon. Now, there are different tiers. There's like two tiers. There's a few tiers of spears here. The first being the wooden spear, which you can see only does like a measly 15 damage. That's not amazing, right? There's also the copper spear here. Copper. There we are, copper spear. That does a little bit more at 40, so we're getting there. It's getting better. There's also obviously the bronze spear, which is right here. That does 50, like not a lot, not quite as big of a jump. And then finally you have the iron spear, which is right there, and that does 60 damage. So that doesn't even do like as much damage as the crossbow, the iron crossbow, but it does do more damage than the longbow. So if you want to throw it, you're going to be doing more damage than the longbow, but not really, because you also have the arrow damage on top of the longbow, so like not worth it in my opinion anyway. So that's kind of like, that is there if you want to use that. Now the cudgel, there's like two different cudgels. There's just like the normal one, and then there's the iron spiked one. The normal one, if we can find it here, yeah, I don't know if he sells it, because it's not really like it's just like wood, but it does like 20, unless it's labeled wooden. No. Well, regardless, it does 20 damage, which is like not amazing. Now the iron spiked cudgel here, you can see that does 50 damage, and again, it doesn't do much more than like the longbow. It actually does less than the longbow. And then again, you add that arrows on top of that. The longbow's still doing really great. Iron crossbow also doing great. So like you're not doing a lot of damage with the melee weapon, at least not in, like, to me, it doesn't make sense to use a weapon that's not going to have as much damage output, especially because it puts you at greater danger, because you're right there with them like stabbing and stuff at you too, or being bitten by animals. So in my opinion, the best weapon in this game is either the iron crossbow or the longbow. And again, if you're like more of a DPS person, you might like the recurve bow a little bit more. And you can find these weapons, at this store. I'm at Lesnica right now. Sure. This guy sells them. You can also make them on your own as you kind of like level up your blacksmithy area. You can unlock those weapons and make them yourself. You can also find them out in the wild with like those little little secret treasure areas that pop up, and you can also sometimes get them off of bandits that you kill. So there's a bunch of ways to get these weapons, and like I said, if you want to go for like the top most damage, put all your money, your effort towards either the iron crossbow, the longbow, or if you really want to go melee, then the iron spiked cudgel. But that's up to you and how you like to play, right? But that's basically the best weapons in Medieval Dynasty. We will update this again if and when they come out with like an update for weapons. Like I said, I'm pretty sure they're bringing out like shields and swords. Unless I'm like mistaking that for another game, which is totally possible, but I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. And we'll talk about that when that comes out. But otherwise, hopefully you guys can have fun with these weapons. Let me know what you're thinking. Thanks so much for watching. We will see you in the next one. But until then, keep surviving and keep thriving.